Hi everyone. So I've been working on a lot of different color work projects and patterns lately, which are a lot of fun to do, but I'm getting a lot of questions about first how we change color and what I mean when I say in my pattern about how you lock or wrap your non-working yarn around when you have long stretches of color work. So in this particular pattern, there is a lot of stitches in between where I have these green stitches here and here. So instead of so what we do, we want to secure that yarn along the backside so it's not gaping. So what I mean is like this. So you can see I have like all these sections in here. I have secured this super long float by wrapping or locking the work. So I'm going to show you first how we change colors into tapestry crochet and then how to lock on a long float. So that's what we're going to go over today. So I'll get this sample out of the way here. And I'm just going to bring back a little swatch that I've been working on. So this swatch was for that pattern you just saw, but it's relevant to what we are doing. So if I'm working in pattern, I would have one more stitch in the green, and then I would want to do one in the purple. So what I'm going to do is before the one that I want to be purple, I'm going to insert my hook. We're doing a center single crochet here in this particular pattern, but it applies to all. So I'm going to pull up my loops. I've got 2 loops on my hook. So now what I want to do is I want this next stitch to be purple. So I need to finish this stitch with the purple yarn. So what I like to do is I like to pull it up to really kind of lock it around. I'm going to grab my purple yarn, which is over here, yarn over, and pull through. Now I'm ready with a purple yarn on my hook to start the next stitch. So I'm going to insert my hook, pull up a loop. Now, because I'm only doing one stitch in purple, I am going to then switch, grab my green yarn, yarn over, and pull through. Now I'm ready to work my green again. So I am going to do a couple more stitches here, and then we'll show you what locking or floating would look like. I've heard it called both. I have called it both. So all right, so we've gotten to the last stitch that we want to do in green. I'm going to pull up, grab my purple yarn, yarn over, and pull through. So I'm ready to work in the purple. So I'm going to do a couple stitches just to get away from the purple. I recommend normally when you have long floats like this, wrapping your yarn about every inch. So in this case, that'll be maybe every 4 stitches. So we'll do 2 more because there's 2 different ways that I have found that you can pretty easily lock your yarn in place. Okay, so we're saying this is a long float. I'm ready to wrap or lock my working yarn or my non-working yarn. So all that I'm going to do is I'm going to try to lift this up to show you is I'm going to leave this one on top. I'm going to grab my contrast color or whatever the non-working yarn is and then wrap it over top of the yarn. So you can kind of see how it is wrapped around the working yarn that I have right now. Now I'm going to continue working in that purple yarn. So I'm going to do a couple more stitches, then we'll flip it over and I'll show you what it looks like. Alrighty. So right here, this is the working yarn or the yarn that we just locked in place, and you can kind of see by doing that it gets locked into that stitch. So it's not really going anywhere. It's not going to fall too deep. It's not going to be rising too high. It is kind of locked into place and wrapped around that stitch. So that is one way where you can lock your stitch. The other way is exactly the same, but it's doing it more in the middle of the stitch instead of at the end of the stitch like we did there. So just for purposes, I wouldn't lock my yarn in this particular place, but I'm just going to show you on the next stitch. So if I were to I'm continuing working in purple, let's just pretend right now. I'm going to pull up my loop. Now instead of yarning over and pulling through 2 and then wrapping it, I'm going to wrap it right now. So while I've got 2 loops on my hook, I'm going to hold this yarn out of place, reach and grab this working or contrast yarn, wrap it around so I switch it back to this hand, and then yarn over and pull through 2. So I'm gonna just do a couple stitches to make sure that's locked into place. And again, we're just pretending that we're working the purple right now. So if that was what my pattern was, you can see here the little bit differently that it's locked into place. This one, you can kind of see it over top, and now this one is locked into place. It's just locked in a different part of the stitch. So this one, they just both sit a little bit differently. I've seen them both done. I have done them both ways in my pattern as I'm working, just depending on which way I remember. But that'll just keep your floating yarn behind you really nice and even. So if again, I can show you the inside of one of my patterns, you can see all of these floats, and then I've locked them into place at various points. Like here's a really good spot where you can see there's all of these locks. You know, it doesn't have to be in the same spot every time, but about every inch is where you want to place one of these when you have really long floats. That way, you know, the inside isn't getting, these aren't too long to get caught on anything, and they will just sit really nicely inside of your work.